Go ahead and get started. We were just chatting about when everyone's check ride is coming up, or if they're kind of just getting a jump on it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through. There's more than 25 questions in this little slideshow that you guys are seeing here, because there's multiple questions per subject. And can you guys see? I just want to make sure you guys can see a PowerPoint right now. If you can see a PowerPoint, can you say yes in the chat? I want to make sure yes. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to switch to a Word document. Can you see this Word document now? Yes. Okay, cool. All right. So these questions are from our Private Pilot Checkride Prep course. So we have an online ground school and a Checkride Prep course, or you can get the bundle. And throughout that course, we have scheduled the lessons in that course and organized it such that it's just like the day of your check ride. So the first lesson is like how to prepare for your check ride, how to make sure you have the right hours, how to do your IACRA, like all that stuff. And then, meet with the examiner, find an examiner from the very beginning, and then, show your logbook, show your credentials, all through that. And then throughout the lessons, we have these situational based questions. And the check ride oral is obviously different than the written exam, but it's not just different in that they say it instead of it written, right? It's different in that it's not going to be, multiple choice or rote memorization. Sure, some of it is a lot rote memorization, but it's going to be specific to your situation. And the DPE is going to build a situation for your check ride. So, for example, part of that situation is going to be the questions, the subjects that you missed questions on the written exam. So DPE is going to create a package for, let's say, Dennis. I'm going to use you for Dennis, right? For Dennis's check ride, he's going to create a package and prepare for the Dennis's check ride. And so he's going to say, okay, Dennis missed, questions on airspace and oxygen, and let's say hazardous attitude. So I'm going to make sure to ask him questions around this. And then wherever you're located, wherever you're going to do the flight, they're going to create a cross-country scenario based off your surrounding area. And there's things you can glean from that too. And we have these kind of tips in the check ride. But for example, if they have your cross-country scenario that they want you to plan, and they have you go over some mountains or through a MOA or special use airspace or something like that, there's clues you can gather of what kind of plan they're building, what kind of package they're building to ask you situational specific questions for your situation that they've built for you. So that's what these questions are. So as you go through the course, there's situational based questions that you might get from an examiner, and then followed by the answer in green. And then that's inside the course that kind of teaches you all that content. Now, we don't teach it fully like we do in the online ground school. It's more condensed in the check ride prep, because of course you should already know that stuff from your online ground school by the time you're prepping for your check ride, but it's still all in there. And so that's what these questions are. That's where they're from. And we're going to do at least 25, probably more like 30, 35 of them. I'm going to go one by one through those. But this, what you see here is all those questions it's not done yet, but we're taking all those questions out and we're making a check ride prep document, check ride oral prep document. And you can see all these questions. We have like hundreds of them, and we're going to put this, eventually make it a PDF, put it in the check ride prep course, and make it available for all the questions. And we're also going to add, like you can see this links and QR codes to videos, so you can kind of watch a video if you need more information on it. So that's where these questions are from, just to give you some background. We're going to go over a few. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a question, and I'm going to let you guys kind of, if you want to write it in the chat, go ahead. If you want to write it down yourself, but I'm going to give you some time to think of the answers to kind of test you guys. We'll do a few like that. And then I'm going to ask for volunteers, or a volunteer to go unmuted, and we'll kind of quiz the volunteer. And I highly recommend you, if you're nervous, to hear your voice or get on, that you get over that. And because it's really good to be in the hot seat. So we'll try and do maybe a couple people like that. All right, so that's my spiel of what we're going to do, and let's get to it. All right, so I'm going to close the chat for now, but I'll bring it back up when we get a second here. All right. So can you all still see my screen? I just want to make sure you can see the presentation. Just say yes if you can still see. Okay, cool. Thanks, Daniel. You are on it. I love it. Thanks, Chad. Okay. All right. So the first one is, if you were to be ramp checked by an appropriate FAA personnel and they asked you to show them your documents, what would you need to show them? If you were to be ramp checked by an appropriate FAA personnel and they asked you to show them your documents, what would you need to show them? Give you guys a little bit before we go over it. So Howard says aero, and aero is specific to the aircraft, but you would also need documentation for yourself. All right, we got Chad says driver's license, pilot license, and airworthiness certificate. Photo ID, says Harry. Med cert. Okay, I think that's enough time now. We'll see what we got here. So for you, and if you ask for documentation for the aircraft, then that would be the aero. But for you, it's and right at this moment, we're expecting that you are, in your checkride. You're not a certificated pilot yet. So your student pilot certificate and logbook, which has your necessary endorsements in it for that flight, or pilot certificate, as I said, but we're assuming we're still a student pilot at this point. Your medical certificate and a valid government photo ID. So good job there. I see someone drawing on the screen. You guys, let's see here. Maybe don't do that. Let's see. How can we turn? Whoever's drawing on the screen, can you not do that? How do I turn that off? Why is that on? Let's see here. Sorry about this. Disable annotation for others. All right. Cool. All right. So let's move on to the next one here. Let me remove this annotation. No worries. Okay. All right. Does your student pilot certificate expire? Is saying no, no, no. All right. And the answer is no. So good job. It does not expire. But what does expire? This is kind of a bonus question. Richard's got it. Yeah, biannual, good call. Your biannual flight review, so your currency and your medical. All right, good job. Okay, question number 2. So again, we're assuming, because these are situational based type questions that you're going to get, we're assuming you're on your check ride. Let's say today goes well and you become a private pilot. What sort of things will you have to do in order to stay compliant and legally fly over the years? Some of you kind of already mentioned this. Proficiency, yes, a good one. But yeah, so we're looking at the biannual flight review and your medical, of course, if that has expired. So once I have a private pilot certificate, I will need to stay current in order to legally fly. I will also want to stay proficient in whatever aircraft and equipment I am flying with. So this is how I think a DPE would really like your answer. Are these answers in green? To stay current, I need to complete a biannual flight review every 24 months, which consists of 1 hour of ground training and 1 hour of flight training. Then, in order to carry passengers during the day, I must have, we also have the passenger currency requirement. So you got to log 3 takeoffs and 3 landings in the last 90 days during the day. And if you want to do it at night, then 3 takeoffs and landings to a full stop during night. So if you noticed here in this answer, the question just kind of asked about the 24-month flight review, right? But my recommendation on the check ride is to anticipate further add-on questions, right? You could see that, if you anticipate the next question might be, what if you have to take passengers, right? If you anticipate that and say it all in the answer, the examiner is going to, kind of get the idea that you know what you're talking about. And it's always better to have a full answer than a shorter one. All right, good job. Let's move on to the next question here. We're still on question 2 because kind of the same subject. I told you there'd be more than 25, but what is the definition of night in this instance when it pertains to night currency requirements? Like, when does night begin and when does it end for night currency requirements? We got 30 minutes after daylight. We got dusk to dawn. We got after the sunset, sunset to sun up, 1 hour after sunset, 1 hour before sunrise, 1 hour past dusk, 1 hour before dawn. We got a lot of different answers here, so this is a good one. So for currency, the definition of night changes depending on whether you're talking about the FARs for logging nighttime, or you're talking about FARs for currency, or whether you're talking about equipment. And for night currency, the definition of night is a time between an hour, this should say in hour, not on hour, an hour after sunset to 1 hour before sunrise. So 1 hour after sunset to 1 hour before sunrise, that is for night currency. All right, good job there, those of you that got that. All right, question number 3. Say your friend wants you to take them flying and offers to pay for the whole flight. Is this allowed? Got some people saying no, must be a commercial rating, no, they can only pay for the portion of their split. No, I must pay my pro rata share. All right, let's see what the answer is. No, a private pilot cannot pay less than their pro rata share of the flight. You guys nailed it. This means if you fly 1 passenger, she cannot pay more than half of the flight cost, which I didn't include here, but that could be another add-on question from your DPE. Like, what can they pay for? You would be considered for hire, which requires a commercial license. All right, so an add-on question. Can your friend pay for dinner and a hotel at your destination? Let's say you're staying overnight and they want to buy you dinner and hotel, and it's really expensive. Like, nicest hotel, 4 seasons. You guys are saying yes, please. Sorry, my window's kind of rattling. Heard that? So yes, okay. Yes, the prorated share rule only applies to aircraft rental, fuel, oil, and airport expenditures. So that's flight operation costs. It does not include things outside the airport. However, a private pilot cannot use this as a bargaining tool or an exchange for services scheme. So sorry, everybody. All right. Okay, let's get a volunteer. So if you want to be unmuted, say what are we gonna say? Say unmuted in the chat. And then I'm just going to pick someone randomly. All right, not a lot. So we got Julian. So we're going to unmute Julian here. All right, Julian, I haven't done this before, so let me figure this out. Got to be a way to do this. Ah, here we go. Julian. All right. I've just asked you to unmute. Are you there?
I'm here. Yep.
Hey. All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. Thank you.
Can everybody hear Julian? Can someone say yes if you? Okay, cool. All right, Julian. Here we go. All right. During an approach to land, you are instructed by ATC to enter on a 45-degree into the downwind of the pattern. As you are going to do this, a flock of birds starts flying right towards you at pattern altitude. Are you allowed to deviate from the instructions the ATC just gave you?
Correct. Yes, you can.
Okay.
And then you can just let them know that there is a flock of birds that flew up and my altitude in that pattern, and I had to deviate. So they'll be okay with that.
All right. So they're not going to force you to fly through the flock of birds?
Definitely not.
Okay. All right. Good job. Yes. If an in-flight emergency requires immediate action, the PIC may deviate from any rule of 14 CFR Part 91 to the extent required to meet that emergency. So good job, Julian. A follow-up question here on that. How long do you have to submit the report you have to write for deviating from those ATC instructions?
48 hours.
48 hours. Okay. I'll give people kind of playing along some time as well for that. A little bit of a trick question. Some of the people are getting it, but you only have to submit a report upon request. If requested, I would submit the report as soon as possible to the administrator. And yeah, so good job, but it's only upon request, kind of what was looking for there. And then, yeah, so that's kind of like ATC is not going to make you submit a report if they could obviously see that there was birds there and that's what you were doing, right? And you tell them right away what you were doing. So good job. All right. Next one. You ready, Julian? Still there? You got muted?
Still here.
Okay. All right.
You can
So
sorry.
no worries. Can I fly my aircraft past the 100-hour mark since it's last 100-hour inspection?
You can fly past 100 hours by 10 hours to get that 100-hour inspection done.
Okay, so if I'm at 101 hours, I can go fly and get that inspection done.
Correct.
Okay. If your aircraft is not for hire, you do not require the 100-hour. So that's one thing that might be a follow-on question there, that it's for hire. If your aircraft is for hire, like when a student flies a rented aircraft with paid instructor, you do require a 100-hour inspection. You're only allowed to fly it over 100 hours by up to 10 hours over if and only if you are flying it to a destination where you're getting 100-hour inspection. So you nailed that one. Good job. And Larry, you saying who owns or operates? Yeah, so that's kind of getting it to the for hire part of it. Yeah, good call there. All right, Julian, you ready for one more?
Yes, sir.
All right. What is the difference between a 100-hour and an annual inspection?
Just the time between. They're the same. 100-hour it's every 100 hours, and like the last answer, it was only because it was for hire, like a flight school, and then the annual is 12. I believe it's 12 calendar months.
Okay,
Only difference.
pretty much got it there. There's no difference in the actual inspection performed by the mechanic, but the requirements are different. 100 hours, as he says, is required every 100 hours of tack time, and only if for hire. Also, the mechanic performing both inspections must be a certified A&P, but to perform and sign off on an annual, the mechanic must also be inspection authorized. So that might, and Samantha's got it. So that might be a follow-on question there. They might say, well, what kind of, if you own your own aircraft and you hire a mechanic, what kind of mechanic can perform an annual, right? So you'd have to say, make sure it's inspection authorized mechanic. But good job. All right, let's do one more, Julian. How about it?
Let's go.
Okay. What aircraft equipment is required for our flight today? We're going to assume that we're flying during daylight hours.
Okay, so I don't have that off the top of my head, but I believe it's 91-205, which is the requirements. And I have it here. And visual flight rules, you need an airspeed indicator, altimeter, magnetic direction indicator, tachometer for each engine, oil pressure gauge for each engine using pressure system, temperature gauge for each liquid-cooled engine, oil temperature gauge for each air-cooled engine, manifold pressure gauge for each altitude engine, fuel gauge indicating the quantity of fuel in each tank, landing gear position indicator if it's retractable, and then that's it. There's other things there that's well, an ELT, and that's what I got.
Yeah, so that's a tomato flame. That's kind of the acronym that people use. Is that necessarily going to be what's required for your trainer aircraft when you fly your check ride?
Yes, because it's the same as if I'm flying today.
Yeah, so well, some of those items are only if applicable, right? Like there's the altitude engine,
Yep.
right? So if your aircraft doesn't have that, then if it's not installed and a part of the empty weight, then that's not required. But there could also be additional equipment required. Where might you find that?
That one I do not know.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, so see the answer here. So our flight today is during the day, so the required equipment can be remembered by 8 tomato flames, which is, you listed them off: airspeed indicator, compass, altimeter, fuel gauges, oil temperature, oil pressure, tachometer, seatbelts and harnesses, ELT, and anti-collision lights. We also need to check the POH. So this is kind of what I was getting to. For any specific required equipment listed in there for our type of operation today. Some aircraft have listed in the POH that they also require specific equipment depending on the kind of operation you're doing. So the follow-up here is, doesn't the MEL, which is the minimum equipment list, doesn't that tell us what equipment we need?
It does, yes.
And does your aircraft have a MEL?
It's basically the POH. It's not, I believe the MELs, well, I'm not gonna BS that, I don't know.
Okay, yeah, no worries. Yeah, so if your aircraft has an MEL, the MEL has to be kind of like authorized for an aircraft. Then yes, that's going to be the governing document for what equipment you have to have. But most trainer aircraft don't have an MEL. So instead of the MEL, we use 91-205, which you mentioned, which is 8 tomato flames. Any airworthiness directives could possibly have an additional requirement for equipment. And then the POH, like we said, it might have a specific section in the POH or specific caveat to some type of equipment that you might have. So when we don't have an MEL, we kind of have to look at a few different sources to make sure that we have all the equipment that we need. But good job. Good
Thank
job,
you.
Julian. Everyone give Julian a virtual round of applause there. We'll let you go back. I'm going to mute you again, Julian, but good job. And we're going to do a couple without, and then we'll do one more, maybe one or two more people here to go on the hot seat. Let's see here. All right. Next question. All right, so say you just showed them their weight and balance, right? So there could be a lot of questions around the weight and balance when you're doing that. They might have you change some weights and recalculate in front of them. One tip is to make sure you use the right empty weight. I know of a student who actually failed because he used the wrong empty weight. So that can change in an aircraft's lifetime. So check the aircraft maintenance logs. But if the CG is too far forward, how would that affect our flight? Give you guys a little bit of a time here. Richard says lower stability, higher stall speed. Matt says difficult to land. All right, so let's see here. A too far forward center of mass can cause the aircraft to pitch so far down that it makes climbing in the aircraft nearly impossible. It would also put a lot of stress on the control surfaces and decrease performance. In landing, a nose-heavy CG condition would make it extremely difficult, if not impossible, to flare, and could cause excessive loads on the nose wheel or a nose-over condition on a tailwheel aircraft. And one thing, so there's a lot of different things, tougher landing, tough to climb. One thing that I didn't mention here that I probably should have is it actually makes it a little bit more stable, because stability is all about when you're bumped off your equilibrium, being able to, there's two types of stability. There's static and dynamic. But when you're bumped off from like some turbulence, pitches your nose up, you want that nose to come right back down. So it would be more statically stable, but dynamic stability is over time that nose, kind of oscillating until it's back to level flight. It might not do that, right? Because it's nose heavy, it might stay down a little bit, and you'll have to use the control wheel to push back, and it adds more stress on the frame and all that good stuff. All right, so good job there. If the CG is too far aft, how would that affect flight? So same question, but now too far aft. So there's really two main kind of things I think DPs will look for on this one. Stacy says hard to recover from stalls. Hard to land, we got stall recovery may be impossible. Richard says this time I'll decrease stability and increase the stall speed. Nice. Difficult or impossible, stall, hard to land. All right, so the answer is a too far aft center of mass can cause the aircraft to want to constantly pitch up, making it harder to control. Aircraft loaded with an aft CG are unstable at any speed. So Richard, yeah, decreased stability, and can make recovering from a stall or spin extremely difficult, if not impossible. So there you guys go. You guys nailed that one pretty well. A too far aft CG causes a decrease in both static and dynamic longitudinal stability, as well as violent stall characteristics. So the two main things that the DP is going to be looking for is it makes it less stable and hard to recover from a stall, and it trends towards stall, right? Like it kind of wants to go towards the stall condition, which is not what we want. So good job there, guys. All right. Question number 8. What is the definition of the empty weight? Empty weight. I mentioned how we want to make sure we have the most up-to-date and accurate empty weight. So it might be, and what I mean by that is it might be different from what's in the POH, because the POH came with the aircraft when it was manufactured, but there could be some equipment that was installed and added to the empty weight since manufacturing, and that number should be updated in the POH with a note or something, but it will be definitely in the logbooks. All right, so what are people saying here? We got POH defines it. No fuel. So yes, the POH defines it, but like I said, things can be added that are not in the POH. Unstable fuel, unusable fuel, and undrainable oil. Aircraft weight, zero fuel passengers. Okay, let's see what the answer is. The empty weight is the weight of the airframe, the engine, and all standard equipment installed in the aircraft, plus any unusable fuel and oil. This is generally defined as the standard empty weight. Some aircraft use the term basic empty weight, which may also include optional equipment or oil. This is why it is important to understand the updated empty weight for your aircraft and make sure it matches your aircraft's actual configuration. So you may not have to give this entire answer, to the DP, you may not have to mention the standard empty weight, but you want to make sure it's the airframe, the engine, and all standard equipment installed, plus any unusable fuel and oil. And then you want to make sure, like I said before, you have the right empty weight and that all standard equipment can change over time. So just make sure that you have that. Yeah, it should be documented in the POH, but I'm telling you from experience that that's not always the case. All right. And what is unusable fuel? Follow-on question from that one. What is unusable fuel? When engine runs dry, remaining fuel in tanks, pump and lines, fuel unable to be applied to the engine. Fuel that cannot be reached during all phases of flight. Fuel that cannot be safely used in flight. All right. You guys are all really close, if not right. Unusable fuel, by definition, is the fuel that remains in the corners of the tanks when the aircraft engine has used all the fuel it can possibly pump from the tanks. This is generally found out during a test for aircraft certification. So I think someone said like engine run dry. Yeah, there's like a engine run dry test that they do in certification where they find out what that fuel number is, and it will be in the POH. All right, good job. You guys were pretty good on that one. All right, number 9. What information are we required to get prior to our flight today? Should say prior to, sorry about that. And let's say you're expecting on your check ride, you should always expect that you're going to fly the situation given to you. So your examiner is going to give you a cross-country plan to plan out, and when you answer these questions and when you fly, you have to assume that you're going to take that flight until the examiner tells you otherwise. Obviously, you're not going to fly the whole cross-country flight, but that's the situation they want you to kind of live up to. So we got N-craft, NW-craft, N-craft, weather, all weather in flight, all info at receiving airport, all available weather, any applicable information on route of flight, N-craft. Yeah, so the requirement is that pilots must familiarize themselves with all available information for the flight. But in particular, for flights outside the vicinity of the airport, we need to get weather reports and forecasts, fuel requirements, alternatives, and any known traffic delays. Then for all flights, we need to get runway lengths, as well as takeoff and landing distances for our particular aircraft. And people include NOTAMs in that. That's kind of included in the known traffic delays, or takeoff runway lengths information. So that's where the NW craft comes from. Traffic delays also would be TFRs, kind of cover that. So that NW craft is kind of what covers that. And again, the FAR, if we're being particular to the FAR, is for flights outside the vicinity of the airport for some of that stuff. And then for all flights, it's the runway length and takeoff and landing distances for our aircraft. So is anyone here? Nick's also talking in the background. I hear him. if someone's mic isn't turned off. Oh. Oh no. Let's see. I'm going to mute everybody. Holly, is that better? Is that better, Holly? Let me know if I sound any better. I muted everybody. Hopefully that was the case. Thank you for letting me know. Is anybody else here? Two Nicks? What about three Nicks? Four Nicks? No, I'm kidding. All right. Let's see here. I think let's go on. All right. Let's get another volunteer, more volume from your end. I don't think I can do that. I can't turn up the volume of my voice. I can speak louder, but I feel like I'm speaking pretty loud. Sorry about that. All right, so let's get one more volunteer. So if you guys can just say hi, H-I, if you want to volunteer to be on the hot seat in the chat. All right, we'll go Samantha and then Felix. We'll get you the second. So we're going to do three. So we'll do Samantha first, and then Felix will get to you. So I'm going to unmute Samantha. Give me 1 second here. All right, Samantha, I just asked you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can everybody
Perfect.
hear Samantha? Let us know if you can hear Samantha, make sure. Okay, cool. All right, you ready, Samantha?
Yes.
All right. What if our flight today was 90 degrees Fahrenheit instead of our planned 60 degrees, and the elevation of our departure runway was 4,300 MSL instead of 300 feet MSL? Would our aircraft use more or less fuel to reach our top of climb if it was 8,500 feet MSL?
I would say more, just because with that increase of temperature, you're gonna have a lot less, you're gonna have poor performance for that climb.
Very good. Very good. Let everyone else kind of answer what their best answer is. And I do have a follow-up, which I'll get here in a sec. That's MSL. Just, yeah, feet, MSL, so yeah, elevation. All right, let's see that answer. With a higher temperature and elevation, the density altitude for takeoff and climb out will be much higher. A higher density altitude decreases aircraft performance, and we would end up taking longer and using more fuel to climb. So good job, Samantha. If I were you, I would just throw in that density altitude word in there, but otherwise you did great. All right, follow-on question. Why does a higher outside air temperature or airport elevation decrease performance?
Is this for me as well?
Yes.
Okay, so temperature, altitude, and humidity are all things that affect density altitude. So because of the higher temperature and also the higher or the higher airport elevation, which would be like less pressure, we would have a higher density altitude.
Yep. And density altitude decreases performance. Why does it do that?
Because you have less air molecules for to help that lift.
All right. Is there anything else that it affects, or just lift?
I would say and thrust as well.
Yep. Yeah, and it also affects the engine combustion as well. So it all
Gotcha.
affects those negatively, but good job. The answer here, I had here, both a higher temperature and higher elevation decrease the density of air. You also mentioned humidity. Humidity also does that. Air density decreases with altitude and it decreases with temperature. This increases the density altitude, and with less dense air, the ability to create lift from the wings is reduced. Sorry, that says reduces. The ability to create thrust from the propellers is reduced. Again, less air molecules to cut through for the propeller, just like the wings. And the ability to create engine power is reduced because of that combustion I mentioned. It all leads to reduced climb performance and burning fuel for longer periods of time. It's going to take us longer to climb. It's going to be a real slog to climb up to 8,500 feet, especially with our single engine trainer aircraft. And higher air temperatures also decrease the cooling ability of air-cooled engines. That could be something you throw on there as well. But good job.
Thank you.
All right, are you down for a couple more?
Sure.
All right. What is true airspeed and why do we use it?
True airspeed is calibrated airspeed corrected for position and instrument errors. And we use it because that is what a lot of our performance charts in the POH are using. So we want to make sure we're using the correct airspeed when we do our chart, or our performance and our nav logs and all that stuff.
Nice. So the first half, second half of that, you nailed it. The first half, I think you were explaining calibrated airspeed.
Okay.
And that's corrected for instrument errors. So we go from indicated airspeed, which is just what's indicated to us, right? That's what we get from the pitot static system. And then, but that system has errors, right? Depending on the positioning of our aircraft and our pitot static system, it's going to have errors. So when we correct for that, we get calibrated airspeed. And then when we correct for non-standard temperatures, because our pitot static system doesn't take into account temperature, you know, unless we're in an advanced aircraft that it's all digital, then it'll incorporate that and it'll give you a true airspeed. But that's the reason why. That's the difference between calibrated and true, is the non-standard temperature correction. So, but yeah, and then you went on to say that, yeah, we use it for flight planning. And the reason we use it for flight planning is because it's corrected for that non-standard temperature, which really is like correcting for the density. So it's like actually telling us what our aircraft is, the actual air mass we are flying in. So it's like what the aircraft is actually flying through, that mass of air. And that's why all our performance calculations are based off that. Right, because it's different than ground speed, right? It doesn't tell us, true airspeed doesn't tell us how long it's gonna take us to get somewhere. But it tells us the performance through the air mass. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Good job. That's a tough one. True airspeed is a tricky concept. All right, number 12. When planning a flight or before a flight, what are some risks a pilot should consider? Kind of very open-ended, but something you might be asked on the day of your check ride.
A very simple one I would use for this would be to talk about the risk with the the PAVE acronym. So risks that I myself as a pilot can have. So another checklist to use for that would be like the I'm safe checklist. Run that, go through that, currency proficiency, all of that stuff. For the aircraft, I would make sure I'm going through I'm having the required equipment, I'm proficient in that aircraft, also the inspections are completed. The pre-flight is good. For the environment, you're making sure you check the weather, you know what kind of airspaces you're getting yourself into, that kind of things. And then for the E with the PAVE acronym, the external pressures, is do we have a time crunch? Do we need to be there super quickly? Can we hold off on the flight? All of that kind of things. I would say to that. I mean, there's many
There's a
ways you
lot,
could
right?
answer
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, no, that was good. I think that was a great answer. So kind of start with PAVE, and then part of PAVE is sort of I'm safe. That's a deeper dive into you, the pilot. So that's exactly what I would say. So I don't know if I want to read all this off because you basically just said it, but basically I'm safe, and then PAVE, as you can see, I listed both those here. So yeah, you want to check in on you yourself, the pilot, right? That's the unsafe. And then PAVE is all about everything external as well, you know, the aircraft, the environment, and external factors. So good job. You down to do one more?
Yeah.
All right, cool. If our flight today took us to 13,000 feet MSL, would we need to plan for anything different?
Yes, we would need supplemental oxygen.
Okay, would we? All right, so if I'm your passenger, do I need it or do just you need it? How long do we need it for? What kind of?
So because we're at 13,000 feet, MSL, only the minimum crew that is required to fly the aircraft. So single-engine plane, I can fly it myself. Only I would need it, and as long as we're if we're at that altitude for more than 30 minutes.
Okay. And what altitude does that change where you would need it? You as the pilot would have to always have it.
I believe it's 14,000 feet MSL. The pilots have to have it at all times, and then at 15,000 feet MSL, that's when everybody, pilots, passengers included, needs to have it at all times.
And so if we're at 16,000 feet, and you have a bottle of oxygen for me as a passenger, do I have to be sucking down that oxygen, or I just have to have it available?
I believe you just have to have it available.
Okay, good job. You nailed it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think there's. I mean, the only other thing is you might mention, probably not what they're looking for, but transponder requirements do change above 10,000 feet depending. So if, like, let's say you were flying in an area where, you know, out away from airspace or something for your check ride, and your transponder wasn't required for some reason, above 10,000 feet, it likely would be. So that's just something to think of. But good job.
Thanks.
All right, I'm going to mute you now, and then Felix, we'll do a couple, just me, and then I'll have you come on. All right. All right, cool. All right, so let's pull the chat back up. Make sure everyone's muted. We don't hear 3 necks again. All right, cool. Okay, so let's see, what are we on? I guess there was, yeah, I kind of already asked this one. All right, number 14, what are the 4 types of hypoxia? I'll let you guys answer these in the chat. Can you guys still hear me, or is anybody still participating in the chat? Hypoxia? Or did I just dump you guys? Hypoxic, histotoxic, hypemic, and I hear you. Okay, good. Hypoxic, histotoxic, stagnant, and hypemic. All right. Samantha's got it. Hypoxic, hypemic, histotoxic, and stagnant. All right. Which hypoxia might someone encounter due to cold temperatures or excessive G forces? Larry says stagnant. Don says hypemic. Kaylin says stagnant. Holly says stagnant. All right, let's see here. It is stagnant hypoxia because it is caused by poor blood circulation. So when you are in high G forces, like one of those, I always think of those old astronaut tests where they whip them around. Your blood can't go where it wants to, right? Same thing happens when it gets all cold and dense. It moves slower. So all hypoxia is based around not enough oxygen getting to your cells, essentially. So your body cells don't have enough oxygen, so it's all about, and the blood is the hemoglobin transport of oxygen in the blood is what you need to give your cells oxygen. So that's what it's all about. There's just different ones because of different causes of how that happens. All right, good job. Okay, so what if on the morning of your flight your sinuses are stuffed up? What would this mean? So if the examiner says, you know, let's consider that you're really stuffed up right now. Do we fly? What do we consider? Doesn't matter. Kaylin says, don't fly. John says, reschedule. Could be bad for the ears. Headache on descent. Your ears won't be able to equalize pressure. I wouldn't fly. Grounded. Can't equalize. Don't fly. I'm safe comes into play. Reschedule. Don't fly. Flying with stuffed sinuses can be a real danger to pilots, especially at high altitudes. As the altitude increases, the pressure decreases. If your sinuses are clogged, they cannot reach equilibrium with the surroundings, and now lower air pressure. They cannot equilibrate and lower the air pressure through the eustachian tube because it's clogged, right? I need to say that better, but if I were to continue to fly, I could have effects that would seriously endanger my flight, such as pain, vertigo, headaches, disorientation, and impaired hearing. So that could be a follow-on, right? They might say, so you guys nailed it. You said you reschedule, say, nope, I'm part of my personal minimums and my unsafe checklist is I'm not flying with a stuffed up nose because as we go to high altitudes, it could really impair a lot of things. Not only is it going to be, so the follow-on could be, well, why? Why does it matter? Why don't you just blow your nose, right? Well, or don't be a wuss, right? Well, it's not just the pain, right? It causes vertigo, headaches, disorientation, and impaired hearing, all things that make you an unsafe pilot. Right, Daniel's having connection problems. Yeah. So this is going to go on the podcast on Monday, so you'll be able to listen to it there. And then the recording, the video recording will go in the check ride prep bonus course. So can everyone else? If you have connection issues for anyone else, let me know. All right. See here. Your passenger, number 16. Your passenger begins to breathe very rapidly. What is happening and what should you do as the pilot? Hyperventilating, paper bag and divert, descend. Get them a sick bag, hyperventilation, have them talk, slow breathing, breathe in a paper bag, lack of oxygen, lower altitude. Hyperventilating, paper bag, descend. Yeah, you guys are all around the same stuff here. As a pilot, I should always focus first on flying. However, having passenger on board a small aircraft that is hyperventilating is not a safe situation. That's, just kind of a caveat there. Once the aircraft is in a safe position, I would tell the passenger to try and control their breathing rate by doing some breathing exercises with them. If I have supplemental oxygen on board, I would give them some. And if all else fails, I could have them breathe in a bag to replenish CO2 they have lost from the heavy breathing. So you guys kind of nailed it. The paper bag, right? The slow breathing. The talking was a good one that I didn't mention here. That kind of, calms them down a little bit. So good job. You guys nailed that one. All right, we're going to do one more, and then we'll put on Felix on the hot seat. All right, as a VFR pilot that is not experienced in IFR conditions, what could happen if you happened to fly through IFR conditions? We got vertigo, risking all. Not sure what that means. Spatial disorientation, CFIT. What does CFIT stand for? I'm not familiar with that acronym. Spatial disorientation, loose situational awareness, controlled flight into terrain. A lot could happen, and this should be avoided at all costs. If I am approaching bad weather and cannot find a way around it, I should turn back to the last known area with good weather. If I got stuck in IFR conditions, it could easily lead to spatial disorientation and illusions that I am not accustomed to, and like you guys said, controlled flight into terrain. So good job. I would just mention that maybe you want to turn back to the last known area of good weather. That's kind of the go-to thing to do. You want to go back to where you knew it was good, right? All right, and rely on instruments as well. Good job, Felix. All right, follow-on question for this one. What are some illusions that spatial disorientation could bring? And now there's a lot of illusions. So if you get this question on your oral exam, you know, it's good to know a few. So we got ice flags is the acronym, right? I don't love that acronym because it doesn't incorporate all of them. There's so many of them, but yeah, that's a good one. Like I said, I just contradicted myself. That's a good thing to remember for your check ride because it'll help you remember some of them. Dark hole effect, graveyard spiral, leans. So, oops. See here. All right. During spatial disorientation, the brain receives a false sensation of rotation. This can cause illusions such as leans, which is when a pilot is in a prolonged turn and doesn't even know it. And when they go to turn more, they could enter a graveyard spiral or spin, or it can cause cinematographic illusions on takeoff, such as the illusions of inverse, head up, or head down. So that's just kind of naming a few. So I like the idea of remembering ice flags and doing that. All right. We got one more follow-up, Felix, before I get you on for number 18. With the heater on, you start to feel a little dizzy. What is happening? Joe says likely carbon monoxide poisoning. Richard says CO poisoning, CO2 poisoning, CO2 poisoning, CO2 poisoning, CO2 poisoning, CO poisoning. Which one is it, guys? Is it CO or CO2? All right, so it's CO. CO2 is carbon dioxide. Carbon monoxide is CO, but you guys got it. With the heater on, there's a high probability of carbon monoxide poisoning. If you feel dizzy, you should immediately turn cabin heat off, open vents, and use supplemental oxygen if you have it. So you may get a follow-on as to why that would happen. And it's like a fuel, something to do with the fuel lines next to the heater lines and things like that. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but that could be something you want to look into as well. So good job, guys. All right. Oh, one more. Sorry, Felix. If you suffered CO poisoning and landed shortly after, should you fly again that day? So say the examiner says, all right, well, let's say you flew this morning, you got CO poisoning, but we're going to wait till this afternoon to do our check ride. Is that cool? Can we do that? People are saying no, no, no. It remains in your system. No, no. Yeah, you guys are right. No excess CO from carbon monoxide poisoning. It takes many hours to leave the body, and therefore the effects can last for a long time. A pilot should not even think about flying for 48 hours after experiencing CO poisoning. All right, Felix, are you ready? I'm going to unmute you, or ask to unmute you. Just speak when you're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Got you as well.
All right. Can everybody hear Felix?
I hope not.
You're going to do great. All right, Felix, you ready?
Sure, let's have it.
Okay. If flying at night, what are some considerations you should make? So again, another one of these open-ended questions that you might get.
I mean, one of the things that flying at night, you've got to get your eyes conditioned to nighttime, meaning for at least 30 minutes before flight. You better not be looking at bright lights, etc. Make sure that if you're going to use any kind of night light, make sure it's on the red versus the white. You need to know your airport lighting as well, taxiways, runways.
Okay. And then, yeah, so good. There's a lot, right? So probably go on for a long time. I said night flight is much different and there are many considerations. You want to make sure you are current and proficient. So that's one you might want to mention in there as well. Before going up for a solo night flight or flight with passengers. You also want to consider the additional equipment requirements at night, right? Make sure your aircraft has that. And then you talked about the flashlight with red lighting to avoid and understanding the changes of vision at night. So possible illusions at night, how to look for traffic at night is different, right? You have a different scanning technique, and which you want to use your peripheral vision. And you mentioned the night blindness caused by white lights. So you might not. Can anybody else think of anything else in the chat? Yeah, Julian says 45 minutes of fuel. The fuel requirements change at night.
Correct. 30 minutes daytime, 45 night.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, good job there. There's a lot on that one. It's very open-ended, so don't feel bad. High terrain areas. Yeah, that's good. Okay. All right, Felix. If the night before our flight scenario, you were at a social event and you had a couple of drinks or alcohol, what should you consider before flying that next day?
8 hours bottle to throttle. I mean, that's probably one of the simplest things, right? Alcohol stays with you as well. So, 8 hours bottle to throttle basically would be my thing.
Is that the only thing the FAR says? Does it just say, as long as it's 8 hours, you're good to go?
Well, you certainly got to go through the I'm safe function.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good consideration. I would also add, so in the FAR, it says,
Blood alcohol. Yes.
yeah, so 8 hours, it says BAC
Yep.
level of less than 0.04. And it says not suffering from any effects. So that's kind of the I'm safe part, right? If you're hungover or something.
Correct.
That would be that. So good. All right. Yep. Map says effects still there. People got the BA. Nice. All right. Next one. If you're flying a friend on a quick cross-country trip and you know that your friend has marijuana in their backpack, is this allowed? I know all your friends feel like they're big potheads, so.
How'd you know? I mean, here again, if I'm the pilot in command and he's got pot in his backpack, you gotta say to yourself, hey, is he loaded or she loaded? I would seriously say, maybe I'm gonna skip this flight.
Yeah, and I think that on these types of questions, you can kind of there's kind of a hack to the checkride oral on these types of questions. You can always say, just revert to my personal minimums are not to fly with any type of situation like that, right? You can always kind of revert to that. But specifically, there's a FAR on that a pilot cannot knowingly carry narcotic drugs, marijuana, and depressant or stimulant drugs or substance in their aircraft, or they're subject to their certificate being suspended or revoked. So that's the specific FAR. But as you said as well, there's considerations whether they're high or loaded, as you said. and just your own personal minimums. But there is a FAR for that includes drugs and marijuana. So good job. All right, you ready for, you want to do one more?
Sure.
All right. All right, what happens if your iPad battery catches fire because you're just using FARFlight way too much? And can you throw it out of the window?
Well, by rights, you're not supposed to throw anything out of your airplane, right? If it's going to possibly impact, people, places, folks underneath you. But if I have a iPad battery and it's on fire, and those lithium batteries, I would seriously look for a place that's open and chuck the thing. So the last thing I want is a fire in my cockpit.
Yeah, not a situation we want to be in either, especially I just think about doing that in like Southern California and then being liable for some fire that burns a bunch of people's houses down or something. So definitely not a good situation, but you got it right that you would be allowed to throw something out the window only if you've made reasonable precautions to avoid injury or damage to persons or property. So maybe if you fly over a lake, right, you just toss it in the lake. And then I go on to say it'd be difficult to do if there's, possibility of wildfire. But if I fly over a lake or an empty parking lot, then that would probably be the best bet. But you can also mention, hey, this is why I bring a flame retardant bag with me, or a fire extinguisher. Fire extinguisher with those lithium ion batteries might not do the trick, might still light up.
It also depends on the type of fire extinguisher that you're carrying. Some of these things will not work on specific type fires. I've heard of this flame retardant bag, but I've not seen any of those. That's something I should probably investigate.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, good job. You want to do one more?
Sure.
All right, cool.
This is all kinds of fun. How many people we got on?
We got 78. All right. Okay, this one, we're getting into some charts here. Can you see that okay?
Barely, but yes.
Okay. So does this airport have a control tower? If so, how can you tell?
With the star that's on top of the runways. It's got a VORDME associated with it.
The star up here is that's the beacon.
Yeah, beacon. I'm looking for. Okay, I give up.
Yeah, so it's a couple things. It's blue, that tells you it's controlled.
Yep.
And then the CT down in
the control tower frequency. I'm sorry. Black.
Yeah. No,
that chart's fuzzy on me. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. This is why we do that. And yeah, if you can't see it, then that's not your problem. But yeah, the CT, or as some people said, I think that's or if it's blue. The next one, so you can't see that, Felix?
It's fuzzy. I don't know why it's fuzzy. I'm looking on my second screen.
Okay.
What is the Unicom CTAF ADIS frequency for this airport? Let's see, ADIS is 121.15. Control tower is 118.1. Unicom. Yeah, the ADIS is 121.15. I'm having trouble. 122.95.
Yeah, so you got ADIS, right? 121.5, and then there's a few control tower frequencies listed there, which is all on that kind of first line. So yeah, you got it. And then 122.95 at the bottom would be the
Unicom,
right?
Unicom, right?
Yeah, Unicom, yeah.
Yep.
All right, so good job.
Thank you.
And then you could find a comprehensive list in the chart supplements.
Yep.
We already talked about this, that if it's blue, it means it's controlled. And one more here, I think. How long is the longest runway on this airport?
What did they say? It's wide as 1,500 feet. Look at blue. Just went blank. If it was Alliance Airport and so on, I would say 11,000 feet. I don't know. Length 10,000. I'm sorry. Like I said, it's not clear on my thing.
Okay, yeah, no worries. All right, so longest runway length is listed in the airport information box on the chart after an L in hundreds of feet.
Yep.
So right
Like I
here,
said, the whole chart's fuzzy. Yeah, I just saw it.
yeah, so it's got the L, so 10,000 feet. All right, good job. And
Thank you.
all right, well, I'm gonna mute you now, Felix, but thank you for that. And when's your check ride?
August.
All right, well, good job. And, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
VORDME.
All right. Sorry, Felix, I had to mute you there. Let me just make sure everyone else is muted and we'll finish up here. All right, so yeah, what type of ground-based navigation station is this? I think Felix kind of beat us to the punch there. That's okay, Felix. It's this symbol right here, kind of to the right of this image. Got a few more questions left, everybody. Stay with me. Can you guys still hear me? Yep, Felix has it. VORDME. Yeah, so the box, the square with the hexagon inside of it, this symbol is a VORDME. That means it's got VOR for, you know, relative positions and radio tracking, and then the DME will give you distance information. All right, good job, Felix. And those of you that got that one. All right, the FSS, if you can see here at the top, 122.05 has an R next to it. What does that mean? Matt says receive only. Richard says receive. Samantha says receives on the frequency. Dennis says receive. Don says receive. All right, looks like you guys are pretty much in consensus on that one. The R next to an FSS frequency indicates the station can only receive on that frequency. They cannot transmit back to you on it, and you will need to listen on another frequency. So good job, right? Only on 122.5. The station can only receive on that. Okay, so don't get that confused there. It's not you, it's the station. All right, what type of airspace is here around Charlotte Douglas International? Matt's got Bravo. Bravo, Bravo, B. Bravo, B. Dennis says D. Bravo, Bravo. Maybe it's Denise. Sorry if I've been calling you Dennis the whole time. The answer is class Bravo. I don't see a class Delta anywhere here. That would be a dash blue. I see some class Echo here, some Echo magenta lines, but yeah, class Bravo is the bold, big blue bold line. Good job, everybody. Can student pilots fly in class Bravo airspace? And then what about private pilots? Private pilots, yes. With an endorsement, only with an endorsement, yes, with an endorsement. Private pilots can. Sorry, I know I threw two in there. Two questions in one. Yes, with endorsements. Must get approval to enter ATC, to enter Bravo from ATC, yep. All right. Student pilots can fly into Class Bravo airspace if they have a Class Bravo endorsement from their instructor. Private pilots can fly in Class Bravo. Private pilots do not need an endorsement, but as some of you mentioned, you know, there is other requirements to go into Class Bravo, like talking to ATC. All right. What sort of equipment would you need to fly in your aircraft to fly in Class Bravo airspace, and does it need to be operational or turned on? Matt is like always the first one to answer, just nailing it. So you guys got Mode C transponders, ADS-B two-way radios, Mode C transponder, two-way, ADS-B. Yeah, so the answer, to fly in Class Bravo, every aircraft needs to have a fully operational two-way radio for communications with ATC. Don't forget that one. A fully operational Mode 3A or Mode S transponder, automatic altitude reporting Mode C, and automatic dependent surveillance broadcast out system, or ADS-B out. They all need to be turned on, operating, and reporting the ATC instructed squawk code. So if it's in there and it's operational, you got to turn it on and you got to have it be broadcast. All right, good job. Okay. What are the VFR weather minimums in Class Bravo? Free COC, 3 statute miles, clear clouds. All right, yeah, you guys nailed this one. 3 statute miles and remain clear of clouds. All right, moving on to number 23. I'm not going to do any more VFR weather minimums. Sure, you guys by now can get those. All right, so examiner will look up, let's say they bring up a METAR and they ask you to decipher it. So I'll go one by one through here so you guys can answer just one by one on the chat. What does the first set of numbers mean? The 271953 Zulu. What does that first set of numbers mean? Day of the month and time. Time of the report, 27th of the month at 1953 Zulu. Yes, yeah, you guys nailed that one. All right, what about the second grouping? 29009er Golf 19er Kilo. Why am I blanking on the T? What's the T, guys? T. Tango. 290 meg winds. Wind direction 290, wind speed 09, gust 19. Winds 9, gusting 19 at 290. Yeah, so the first three are the direction, that's 290. The next one is the velocity in knots, so it's 9 knots. And then the G means it's gusting to 19 knots. And someone said meg. So is this are these in terms, is this direction in terms of magnetic or true? That's a good follow on. And let's say you're reading this from a report. You're not getting this over the radio from ATC, you're reading it. So we got written is true, heard is magnetic, reading is true. Yeah, so if you read it, it's true. Kind of that's how you kind of remember that. Or you can kind of remember that when you're flying, ATC is going to tell you everything in terms of magnetic because they expect that you're going to be referencing things off your magnetic compass. All right. What about the next group? It says 10 Sierra Mike. 10 Sierra Mike. I guess I kind of gave you a clue there. There's not. 10 statute miles visibility, 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 visibility. Yep. You guys got that. All right. What about the next grouping? BKN, Bravo Kilo November 200. Broken clouds at 20,000 feet, Broken closet 20,000. Broken closet 20,000. FL200 20,000. Yep, you guys nailed it. So it's the cloud layer broken, and then it's in hundreds of feet. So you just add 2 zeros to that 200 to get 20,000. Matt says AGL or MSL. That is MSL. All right. Next grouping, M Mike 09 / Mike 24. What does that tell us? Temperature dew point, temperature -9, and dew point and -24 dew point. Temperature is -9, temperature dew point -9. Yep. Yeah, so the M means minus, and then when you kind of see two temperatures with a slash, that's the temperature followed by the dew point. All right. So good job there. Last grouping, Alpha 3016. Altimeter setting 30.16. Now this altimeter setting number, is that what's the units of that? Could we enter that number into our altimeter setting, or is that like, or is this hectopascals, or you guys saying inches of Hg, inches of mercury? Yes. Yep, that's inches of Hg. Confusing part is sometimes in the remarks they tell you some pressure information, and they give it to you in hectopascals in the remarks. I don't know why they change it up on us. But when you see A, think altimeter setting, and then you can put the decimal, place in the middle, just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? You just kind of assume that you can put the decimal place to make it 30.16. So good job. All right. So just a little summary there. Got all that there. All right. How long are METARs valid? One hour, typically 1 hour, 1 hour. METARs are issued every hour and valid for an hour after they are issued. Sometimes there's kind of updated METARs that breaks that rule, but typically, yeah, every hour. You guys nailed that one. All right. Question number 24, almost to the end here. Is an airmet or SIGMET of importance to a private pilot? Everyone's saying yes, yeah, both. Thumbs up. What do we got here? Private pilot flying a small general aviation aircraft would need to be alert for both an airmet and a SIGMET. Airmets are in-flight weather reports of weather that is occurring or may occur along an air route that detail potentially hazardous weather conditions for light aircraft, such as moderate icing and moderate turbulence. SIGMETs are in-flight weather forecasts for significant meteorological hazards that are hazardous to all aircraft. So we, as a tiny little, private pilot flying single engine prop, we are all of that, right? We're small aircraft, but we're also all aircraft. So yeah, we care about both. All right. What would an airmet tango tell me? What is an airmet tango? What's that tell me? You guys are saying turbulence, 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 turb, bumpy ride, turbulent. Sorry, Dennis, I had to. Turbs. I like turbs. We should just, from now on, just shorten turbulence to turbs. I like that. All right. Airmet Tango would tell you possible turbulence forecasted. AirMet Sierra would tell you about IFR forecasted weather, and AirMet Zulu would tell us about icing. So good job. You guys nailed that one. Turbs with a Z. Yeah, there you go. That's even better. All right. Last question. What is the cause? I think we have a couple questions here in this one, but what is the cause of all weather? Uneven heating of the Earth's surface, heat exchange, heat and exchange, heat exchange. Winds due to heat exchange, uneven heating of Earth's surface, heat exchange, uneven heating of Earth's surface, heat exchange. Global warming. Which, I mean, hey, that's heat exchange, right? Unstable atmosphere, heat exchange. Good job, you guys. Every physical process of weather is accompanied by or is the result of heat exchange. Yep, so that can occur. So one follow-up question might be like, well, how or why? Explain a little bit more. And well, just the tilt of the Earth, and whether you're close to the equator or away from the equator, you're further away from the rays of the sun. So that's that, extra heating near the equator and less heating because it's literally further away from the sun in like the northern hemisphere, near the North Pole, for example, gets less heat. So you get these pockets of air that are cold, pockets that are hot, and that's going to start this, high pressure, low pressure systems, and they want to, find an equilibrium. So they start mixing, they create winds. And then also at a more micro scale, you got water, you got lakes, bodies of water and oceans that heat at a different rate than land does. So then when you get water next to land, you get different heating and cooling rates that create, pockets of air that are different temperatures. So, so yeah, it's all heat exchange and uneven heating of the Earth's surface. So good job. All right. I think this is the last one. Yeah, if you plan to travel on a cross-country flight, so today on your check ride, but you will travel through a warm front with a low-level significant weather chart. So you look at the low-level significant weather chart, you see, hey, our flight's going through a warm front. What weather would you expect to see when you do that? So I could see, the examiner pulling up a low-level significant weather chart, asking you some questions about some of the symbols on there, and then maybe picking, a warm front area or a cold front area, something like that, and saying, what if we flew through this? What would we expect? Larry says, which way? That's a good call, but let's just say kind of in general, either way. Dennis says cloudy and possible showers. Samantha says favorable weather, but poor visibility, maybe some rain as the front passes. Denise or Dennis, not sure, says cold, wet. Cold, wet, cold and wet. Okay, let's see what we got here. Warm fronts form when warm, moist air slides up and over cold air. As the air rises, it condenses into stratus-type clouds, which usually create a uniform ceiling of clouds, as well as widespread precipitation and bad visibility. Kind of makes a layer, kind of traps things. So you get like, light rain, mist, low-level clouds, traps like particulates, smoke, fog, smog, stuff like that. So usually the visibility is low. And yeah. All right. I think that is it. That is it. So good job, everybody. Again, like I said, this is just maybe 35 questions of what we got in the Check Ride Prep course. So, and I just updated that. We got, somebody mentioned before, we got some bonus podcast episodes in there, like the one on visualization before your check ride with Bob Tewksbury, who was a former Major League Baseball player. That's really good. And then we have a sleep expert on a tip, one of my tips, to get a good night's sleep before your check ride. We're updating our check ride prep course, and this is one of the things we're going to put in there, this comprehensive list of questions. So hopefully you guys enjoyed a little bit of this. Going to try to do some more of these if I can. And for those that volunteered, great job. And good luck to all of you on your check ride. Don't be a stranger. Let me know on social media or email how your check rides go, all that stuff. So yeah, thank you guys. And yeah, no problem. No problem, Peter. No problem, Jim. All you guys. Take it easy. And like I said, the audio recording is going to be on the podcast on Monday. And then we'll put the video in the check ride prep course, in the bonus course. So thank you guys. All right. Talk to you later.